This morning's Old Testament reading comes from the first book of Samuel, chapter 8, verses 4 through 11 and 16 through 20. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow you in your ways. Appoint for us then a king to govern us like other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel, and when they said, "Give us a king to govern us," Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, just as they have done to me from the day I brought them up out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so also they are doing to you. Now listen to their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them, and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." So Samuel reported all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take chariots and to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. He will take your male and female slaves and the best of your cattle and donkeys and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you that day." But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel. They said, "No, but we are determined to have a king over us, so that we may be like other nations, and that our king may govern us and go out before us and fight our battles."
Chapter 3, verses 20 through 35. And then he went home, and the crowd came together again so that they could not even eat. When his family heard it, they went out to restrain him, for people were saying, "He has gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebub, and by the ruler of the demons he casts out demons." And he called them to him, and he spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, the kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but his end is come. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his property without first tying up the strong man. Then indeed the house can be plundered. Truly I tell you, people will be forgiven for their sins, and whatever blasphemies they uttered, but whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit can never have forgiveness, but is guilty of an eternal sin, for they had said, 'He has an unclean spirit.' And then his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, 'Your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside asking for you.' And he replied, 'Who are my mother and my brothers?' And looking at those who sat around him, he said, 'Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother.'" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So some of you may have noticed once again, I have a certainly very unique and different sermon title. If you draw your attention to the screen or the bulletin now, you can kind of see what that sermon title is. So it shouldn't be a question mark, that's just the typo, but that's okay. So it's humanity, right? Well, know what humanity is, so that's in there. And then I added the U to give it unity. I think we kind of need some unity. So we're going to look today at the humanity and how that kind of affects us and how we maybe perceive and view other people. And then the unity that can be found within that, or we should kind of get to, is what Christ is calling us and encouraging us to find this sort of unity in life. And then the you in parentheses, I just put that there so you knew it wasn't a typo. But it takes you. It takes all of us to find this unity and find this humanity that we can gather from and find in life. So that's kind of my sermon title in a nutshell, and that will be our sort of journey this morning through this understanding of Huma unity. So there's so many different times in my life where I can recall a sense of division as opposed to unity. Well, some of the most memorable ones probably occurred to me, as they did for most people, during my middle school and high school years. For whatever reason, people just felt extremely divided then. Cliques and groups were being formed, people were getting pushed to the wayside, people were kind of gathering up to be this group and have these divisions and separate away from a school-wide unity. Of course, this was probably similar for a lot of people in their life. Friendships were being formed, differences were being highlighted and realized and kind of pointed out in life. Who knows, maybe the seed started occurring at a younger age than we realized, but it was at this point that we kind of see bigger differences in people. Whether it's what they were wearing, how they acted, what kind of unique hair they might have sported during school, or some kind of unique mannerisms or quirks that they maybe developed or just had deeply ingrained in them. So for me, this wasn't necessarily a day, it was more of a career. Time in middle school and high school collectively in which differences really felt strengthened and magnified in life. Needless to say, I wasn't a fan of this, of pointing out these differences to other people. Nor, sadly, can I say that I did not participate or contribute in any way. It's probably one of my bigger regrets in life, being a part of this highlighting differences and pointing them out to other people just in an effort to fit in. And maybe it was that peer wave that kind of pushed me to want to do that. Whether it's for a few cheap laughs or just to kind of feel like I fit in myself. And I think a lot of it was self-preservation. That I did it in order so that I wouldn't be the source of that ridicule or that joke. And not that that justifies it, but it allowed me to sleep at night as a young high school guy to justify maybe what I was doing. And so here we were having these differences and people kind of pointing them out and highlighting them and calling attention to them at different times during my high school year. Was that the best decision in my life? Probably not. But at the time, I said it just felt that I needed to do it to protect my own skin. But I don't know if that was the best route for me to go. You see, which was odd was the strongest place I felt unified the most was on my soccer team. I don't know if it was because we all had one unified goal that we wanted to all win games and we knew we needed each other to do that. Or that we all had each other's backs and protect each other and kind of come together as a team in this group. Or we had good leadership that kind of helped mold that and shape that in some way. But that was the one place I felt we had a strong, unified togetherness sense. I didn't even really feel it much in the school. Sometimes not even in the church that I grew up in, but I felt it in my soccer team. And so I know it's possible. And that restores my faith and hope that we can find unity in so many different areas and aspects of life. We know there will be disagreements. We know there will be arguments and fights even from time to time. But what causes us to enact in those fights or disagreements? What do we get out of it? And why do we continually seek to do it? Are we looking for something positive or good to come out of it? Do we want to change someone's minds or instill our beliefs in someone else or just convey what we strongly believe? There has to be something. Perhaps a cluster of things that regards someone's penchant for picking fights or having certain arguments with other people. So these can range from the small and petty to the grand, the big, and the deeply rooted convictions or arguments that we might have. You see, people can disagree over what color might be best to paint a living room, right? Well, I want to agree. Oh, no, we should go neon purple. I don't know, whatever color you might want to pick. People can have certain disagreements on policy, procedures, and yes, even surprisingly, politics. People can disagree there too. People can have disagreements over certain morals or beliefs. and particularly biblical translations and theological understanding. But we get that disagreements happen. And that partly is why we are so beautiful and wonderful as human beings. We all have our own opinion. We all have our own traits and behavioral tendencies and personalities. But sometimes disagreements go a little too far. And they kind of shape and mold our psyche so that we view the world and other people with a certain sense of skepticism or judgment. So these sort of disagreements aren't even relegated to just strangers or acquaintances or Facebook or internet warriors or trolls or whatever you want to call people these days. But they can also trickle into our good friendships or our marriages or our families. Between our spouses, we can have strong, heated disagreements and differences. So what makes it worse when we disagree is that we have a mindset of vast superiority for ourselves and our beliefs and our way of thinking. But that's where we kind of run into trouble. If we're thinking we are better than the person that we're talking to, or better than our spouse, or better than our family or a good friend, or better than the person across the counter at the McDonald's where we order our coffee, and that's where we really run into trouble with this mindset. So if we have that mindset that we are superior, it greatly diminishes and removes our respect for thoughts or lives or traits or influences and beliefs of other people. So these discrepancies kind of lead to major fallouts or heated discussions and debates. But I think a big part of such heated and escalated arguments and our tendency to highlight these differences revolves around our tendency of forgetting one key aspect: humanity. We fail to see the humanity in the other person. We view them as an object or an item or a thing to conquer or a thing to be superior to. So we lose sight of the humanity that God has created us all to be. So some of this kind of goes back to what I talked about last week in listening. But I feel there's an issue that's even deeper than just not listening to someone else. It's a word that I kind of made up called disconnectionalism. It's a little mouthy, so I don't know. It might be a real word, but I feel like it's a fake word. And that we're too disconnected from one another. We're so far removed that we can't see that the other person is in fact a human being. They have the potential to be our brother and sister in Christ. So we're too focused on disagreements or categories or differences that separate us and create a greater sense of disunity. So a large portion of that is a lack of just understanding who the person is, or understanding their livelihood, or maybe how their childhood, which was beyond their control, shaped them to be the person that they are today. So as a result, we see less and less of the humanness of someone else. So even if they are not that much different than we are. And this is fed through many different avenues in life. I feel things constantly feed these differences that we see and we realize in life. And they contribute to this disconnectionalism. And one of the big contributors to this is an invention that a lot of people love and a lot of people loathe. A little thing called the internet. You guys heard of this? Right? Yeah? No? So as with most things in life, the internet has been both a blessing and a curse to us. And as with most good tools, it can be used for good and used for bad and nefarious reasons as well. Yet at the same time, it's opened up a whole barrel of worms that seems to have put us down this path that just gets darker and darker and deeper in life. You see, there was once a time in life where people just kept their voices and opinions inside their own head. Do you remember that? Yeah? You remember those times? And now anybody has any little thought or opinion or thing, they just throw it on the internet. And so what does that do to our mind? It shapes us by saying, oh, look, person put X, Y, and Z up here. They must believe this, or they must be like this, or they must act like this. Or can you believe what they said about this? That must be who they are, what they believe, and how they want to be. So we're just conditioned to continually see that and categorize someone in an unfair way just from a little snippet that they might share. See, before it was beautiful. We could walk down a sidewalk. We didn't have a little bubble pop above our head. that said, oh, I think this about this and this and this. Won't you argue with me today? No. We could just walk and mind our own business. But now, with the internet, it just pushes people further and further away. It seems to drive a giant wedge into our potential for unity. So we need to find a certain way to kind of bridge that gap and destroy that wedge so that we can become more unified. So think of this example, right? I'm going to say a word and just think to yourself, but think about what pops into your head when I say a word, okay? So what if I said Russia? What pops into your mind? Probably a whole myriad of different thoughts and feelings and things that we really can't control or don't know how they kind of bubbled up, but they're there. But I'll venture to guess many of these diverse thoughts are centered around some of these different statements. We might think of how the country seems different from ours. It has a different leader, a different weather climate, a different currency, a different and unique language, and these special little buildings that seem much different from ours. But did you notice the word that was before all of those nouns? That's the word different, right? Well, maybe they aren't that much different from us that we know of. And for what Ellen has shared with us and can share about her experiences in working over in Russia. But we're conditioned to think a certain sort of way. When we hear words like that, they just create some sort of feeling and thoughts that sometimes we can't even control or we don't even realize is happening to us. But we need to get past our disagreements, beyond our differences, and beyond this kind of preconceived notion and judgments of certain things when we hear words or see people or hear statements. So this is entirely possible with just about every single human being on this planet. Now, granted, there will be some exceptions. I won't name them, but I'm sure we could figure out who those people might be. But there's got to be some way we can find a connection to at least one other person. We have to find some common ground. And trust me, there's always at least one place you can start to find a similarity in someone else. Let's start with the simple fact that they too have a heart. Let's start there. Something simple. It may seem obvious, but we all are made by God. We all are God's beloved children, no matter what differences we might have piled on to our whole being and personality. Find some common ground. And that's where we have to start. To find what connects us. Find what makes us similar, as I kind of did with the girls here today. We do have differences, yes, and those should be celebrated, but we also have so much in common that we don't even realize that on a day-to-day basis. Therefore, it's absolutely crucial that we focus on this sense of unity and what connects us together more than what separates us apart. And that's how we need to see the world. A world as a potential place in which we can come together as a unified being, and especially in a church. Now, how do we become that unified body in Jesus Christ? It's getting beyond our differences. Well, why is this important? You might be thinking to yourself. It's very important on a number of levels and for many different reasons. For starters, by seeing a reduced number of differences and an increased number of similarities, we begin to view people as equals. It's one of the great benefits of seeing someone else as an equal is that we're more inclined psychologically to want to help them. Now think about it for a second. If you see your sister or your mother or your brother, if you're close to them and you see them as an equal in your family life, you're more prone to offer some help or some aid, right? Whereas if you see a stranger or someone down the road or maybe even someone that's homeless, think, oh, they're a lot different than I am. I'm not sure if I should help them as much. Now, we as a church do a great job of helping those that are different or seem different from us and have different situations and kind of getting beyond that. But on a daily basis, not everyone kind of sees it that way. They just see what sets us apart. And they don't see what can bring us together. But similarly, if we see someone as an equal, we are more likely to treat them fairly, right? It just kind of makes sense. So if you view someone as an equal, you can either just play a sport or do an activity and treat fairness, or if you see someone as inferior, then you're like, oh, why do we need to be fair to that person? Now think of this example as something that's kind of plagued this world for a very long time. For millennia, women have been viewed as not as equal as men, right? It took forever to get women to vote, to be seen as an equal. And I have 3 daughters, of course. I never really thought that way, but I certainly don't think that way now. And women are just as capable of men in doing so many different things. And yet for years and years and years, women have not been seen that way. All we see is the different way that they work, or the different way that they act. But I'm here to tell you that women are just as capable as men, if not more so, on different levels. But granted, we do have our differences, and we are made certain ways. We're wired a little differently in some things. But that doesn't mean that one sex is better than the other. We all have hearts. We all have involuntary organs. We all have this epidermis stuff that covers our bodies. We're all children of God. So today's scriptural account from Mark's gospel shows us that yes, disagreements and misunderstandings do happen. But another important piece of that is covered in division and a lack of unity is a dearth of issues that can kind of just come from that. And so if we don't have this unity, if we see too many differences, then we run into problems. One example Jesus gives is when he's busy casting out demons. He says, how in the world can Satan cast out himself? Meaning, how is one to find success or find unity if they're just fighting amongst themselves? It's almost a little backwards. And one has to wonder, how can anything get accomplished if there's not unity and cohesiveness found within? Now, this was obviously important for Jesus, and of course for churches, for families, for governments, and for the globe. Unity is important. We have to have that to succeed and do well in life. And now towards the latter part of Mark's message, we discover yet another wonderful response from Jesus Christ. The crowd's calling to him saying, Jesus, look, your mother, your brothers, your sisters are outside. They're waiting for you. And what does Jesus say? He says, look around to everyone at this table. But what do you see? What I see is my brother, my sister, and my mother. Whoever does God's will is just like that in my eyes. You see, Jesus was able to find some way to elevate those that were in the room to that of equal standing with his blood brothers and mother, all through him. But Jesus knew the importance of unity. He knew the importance of coming together and getting beyond differences. So he elevated that the status of those around him to that of his own brother, kin, and mother. See, what a remarkable gift. To have Jesus look at you and say, no, you are equal to me. You are just like my own brother and my mother who I love dearly. What a tremendous gift. You see, Jesus knew how important unity was. That's why he took this very small step on this day to encourage us to realize that. He doesn't want us to forget or fail to see how important it is that we get beyond our differences and that we can all be unified in Jesus Christ. So lastly, in order to find a more unity in this world amidst this humanity, it takes you, right? Capital U or Y-O-U, however you want to do it. We can't pass this off to someone else. Oh, it has to start with us. We can't say that, oh, my neighbor needs to start or my neighbor needs to extend the olive branch of peace. It has to come from within. We have to see others as similar as opposed to different from us. And we have to kind of gauge, what causes those thoughts to see those differences. Now, how do they make us feel when we're on the receiving end of being treated differently or unfairly? What's going through our heart and our mind? Now, how do they impact the thoughts that we have, the words that we speak, and the actions that we take? Now, how is all of that influenced through our outlook on life? You see, we have to be the one that starts this process. The process of seeing someone similar to us. So how do we bridge that gap? And how do we close it? And how do we get rid of that giant wedge or that tool of the internet or other people seem to have driven in between us? For starters, we can spend time with someone we don't know that much about, right? But novel idea. We can invite them to dinner. If that's too much, maybe a cup of coffee. And if that's too much, maybe we can just call them on the phone and say, hey, how are you doing? If that's too much, we can just send a carrier picture. Say, hey, respond back. If you'd like to get to know me more, we would get to do these letters in the pigeon. So there's so many different ways you can work on actively closing these different wedges and gaps. That would have to be intentional. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, and all of those things that make us get a little uneasy. But when we have that curious conversation, we have to reserve judgment or just take it off the table completely and come to someone with an open mind and ears and hearts and just listen. Another big portion of this involves our mindset. And we need to approach people with a mindset like that of Jesus Christ. We have to view everyone as a potential brother and sister in Jesus Christ. And sometimes that's not easy. I'm not going to lie. And maybe we have our regrets of not doing it or pushing people further away or seeing bigger divisions in life. But there's a method that really helps us clear our minds and clear our hearts of the stains that maybe take that a little bit. So it involves abstaining from the internet, and social media, and cable television. Right? Easier said than done. Especially when I encourage you to go on Facebook and talk about it. But those all kind of filter into us and cause us to believe in a certain way. A lot of times it's through someone else's personal agenda or their own thoughts, so it seeps into our mind, our hearts, and our soul. It starts to kind of construct us into different people than we really want to be. We begin to see those differences magnified, as opposed to some similarities that we need to see on a daily basis. So all this being said, we need to realize just how important that human unity is in life. The world's a much better place when we get along and celebrate our differences as opposed to using them for a reason to argue or fight. The world's a better place when we view people as equals, despite what they cause us to magnify the differences. The world's a better place when we realize that we can all be brothers and sisters in and through Jesus Christ, with people both near and far. The unity helps us to strengthen ourselves and the communities and the families to which we belong. It motivates us to help the less fortunate and the downtrodden in life. But did you happen to pick up again what Christ said? He said, if we can be unified, how can there be any large division among us? So if you have one, how can it really be divided? I know we have some mathematicians in there. I don't know if you can really divide one, but I don't think you can't just go with it theologically. You have one, you can't divide that apart, right? Aside from practice, let's not be practice. You have one, right? So if you have this one strong church, this one strong community, this one strong nation, this one strong world, how much better would everyone be? How much kindness would be shared? How much more love and empathy would abound? How much more peace would there be? See, together we can do more. Together we can be strong, and together we can be a beacon of faith, hope, and love for the world. But just as Christ would want us to be. So picture Christ sitting down with us, saying, you all are